Hey guys, tonight we're heading somewhere so cold that your eyelashes freeze together when you blink, where boiling water thrown into the air vanishes before it hits the ground, and where stepping outside without proper gear can kill you in under 3 minutes. We're talking about Yakutia, Russia, specifically the village of Oymyakon, where temperatures have plummeted to a bone-chilling minus 71.2 degrees Celsius. That's minus 96 degrees Fahrenheit for my American friends. And here's your reality check. You probably won't survive this. Seriously, the human body wasn't designed for this level of cold. But tonight, we're going to find out exactly what it takes to make it through just one day in the coldest inhabited place on Earth. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. Drop a comment below telling me where you're watching from and what time it is for you right now. Are you in sunny California at noon? Rainy London at bedtime? I love seeing how this little community spans the globe. Now, dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. You open your eyes to complete darkness. Not the cozy darkness of a bedroom at night, but the thick, suffocating blackness of a place where even the concept of light seems to have frozen solid. Your breath, and you can hear it, each exhale rasping in the silence, forms a cloud so dense you could almost grab it. The air in your nostrils feels sharp, like inhaling tiny shards of glass. You're lying in your sleeping bag, every layer you own piled on top of you, and still the cold has found its way through. Your toes are numb. Actually, everything below your knees is numb, which is either very bad or just normal for a February morning in Yakutia. You genuinely can't remember which. You reach one hand out from your cocoon of blankets and immediately regret it. The air temperature in your cabin, yes, inside, where you're supposedly sheltered, hovers around minus 30 degrees Celsius. Outside? Well, you checked the thermometer before bed last night, and it read minus 68 degrees Celsius. That was 8 hours ago. It's probably colder now. The thermometer might actually be broken. Not because it's faulty, but because at these temperatures, the alcohol inside standard thermometers freezes solid. Mercury freezes at minus 39 degrees Celsius. Alcohol-based ones give up around minus 70 degrees Celsius, and you're well past both thresholds. The only reliable measuring devices out here are the fancy digital ones, and even those require special batteries that won't crack and die in the cold. You have one of those thermometers. Had one anyway. It's currently sitting in 3 pieces on your table after the LCD screen shattered 2 days ago with a sound like a tiny gunshot. You swing your legs out of the sleeping bag, a monumental effort involving several minutes of mental preparation, and plant your feet on the floor. Even through 2 pairs of wool socks, the wooden planks feel like ice. Which makes sense because they essentially are ice. At minus 71 degrees Celsius, wood behaves less like wood and more like frozen wood, which is its own special category of misery. It doesn't flex. It doesn't give. It just sits there, rigid and cold, waiting to suck every joule of heat from whatever touches it. You stand, wobble slightly. Circulation is a funny thing when your blood is trying its hardest not to become slushy, and shuffle toward the door. Your cabin is small, maybe 4 meters by 5 meters, with walls made of thick logs chinked with moss and clay. There's a small wood stove in the corner that's gone cold during the night because keeping it burning 24/7 would require you to wake up every 2 hours to add more logs. And you decided sleep was more important than warmth. Bold choice. Questionable choice. Time will tell if it was a fatal choice. The door is just 3 meters away. 3 meters between you and the outside world. Between you and the kind of cold that has its own presence, its own weight. You can feel it pressing against the walls of your cabin, patient and hungry. You reach for the door handle, a simple metal latch, and your fingers stop centimeters away. Right? Metal. Bare skin. At minus 71 degrees Celsius, that's not a mistake you make twice because you won't have the fingers to make it a second time. You pull your hand back and fumble for your gloves. Thick reindeer hide mittens lined with dog fur. The Saka people, indigenous to this region, have known for thousands of years that reindeer and dog fur trap air better than anything else. They're not wearing these mittens because they're fashionable. They're wearing them because every other option leads to frostbite within minutes. Gloves on, you grip the door handle and pull. Nothing happens. You pull harder. Still nothing. The door doesn't budge even a millimeter. You lean back, putting your whole body weight into it, and the door remains absolutely, perfectly, mockingly still. That's when you understand. The door has frozen shut. Not just stuck. Not just a bit of ice around the edges. The moisture from your breathing, from simply existing in this space for the past 12 hours, has condensed on every surface and frozen solid. The door, the frame, the tiny gap between them, it's all one solid piece now. The door has become part of the wall. You are sealed in your cabin like a can of sardines, if sardines were idiotic enough to visit Yakutia in February. You step back and stare at the door as if staring might solve the problem. It doesn't. Outside, you can hear the wind starting to pick up. A low, moaning sound that seems to come from the earth itself. Historians still argue whether the extreme isolation and harsh conditions of places like Yakutia fundamentally shaped the Russian character toward stoicism and endurance, or whether that's just romanticized nonsense. Either way, you're about to find out firsthand what kind of character you've got. Your cabin has one window, a double-paned affair that's currently decorated with frost patterns so elaborate they'd make a Victorian lacemaker weep with envy. These aren't delicate little ferns. These are three-dimensional ice sculptures growing on both sides of the glass, some of the crystals nearly a centimeter thick. You move closer and peer through a small clear spot. Outside, the world has been drained of color. Everything is white, gray, or the deep blue-black of shadows in snow. The sun won't rise for another hour, but even when it does, it'll barely clear the horizon before starting its descent again. February in Yakutia offers about 5 hours of weak, watery daylight. The rest is darkness, cold, and the strange phenomenon of ice fog, a ground-hugging mist made of tiny ice crystals that forms when it's cold enough that the air itself can't hold moisture in gas form anymore. You can see your nearest neighbor's cabin about 50 meters away. There's no smoke coming from their chimney either, which means either they're dead or they made the same stupid decision you did about letting the fire go out. 50-50 odds. Really. The quirky reality of Yakutian life is that neighbor is a relative term. Oymyakon has a population of about 500 people spread across an area that would comfortably fit a small city. Your nearest actual human could be sleeping peacefully in that cabin, or they could be 3 kilometers away. Cell phones don't work reliably here. Batteries die almost instantly in the cold, and there's not exactly premium cell coverage in one of the most remote regions on Earth. You are, for all practical purposes, alone with your frozen door. You return to the door and examine it more carefully. Ice has formed in thick ridges around the entire frame. The gap between door and wall has become a solid white seal. You can actually see your breath from last night's sleep, frozen in layers like tree rings, each exhalation adding another microscopic coating of ice to every surface. The wood stove. That's your answer. Get the fire going, warm up the cabin, melt the ice. Simple. Except nothing is simple at minus 71 degrees Celsius. You move to the stove, a squat iron beast that weighs probably 60 kilos and radiates cold like a malevolent presence. Next to it is your wood pile, logs you brought in 2 days ago and have been keeping inside specifically so they wouldn't be frozen solid. Smart thinking past you. Current you appreciates it. You open the stove door, metal hinges creaking in protest, and peer inside. Dead ash, a few charred log ends, and the absolute absence of warmth. You grab some kindling from your box. Small twigs, some birch bark, which burns even when wet, a neat trick of nature, and a few larger sticks. Your matches are in your pocket, kept close to your body because a frozen match is just a small wooden stick with delusions of grandeur. First match. Strike, flare, tiny warm glow. You touch it to the birch bark and the bark catches immediately, crackling happily. Small victories. You add twigs, watching the flame grow, feeling the first whisper of warmth on your face. It's probably 15 degrees warmer near this tiny flame, which means it's a balmy minus 55 degrees Celsius instead of minus 70 degrees Celsius. Beach weather, basically. You add larger sticks than a proper log. The fire settles into a steady burn, and you close the stove door. Now you wait. The stove needs to heat up, which will heat the air, which will eventually, maybe hopefully, warm the door frame enough to melt the ice seal. This is going to take a while. You settle back against the wall, wrapping yourself in a blanket, and think about the series of decisions that led you to this exact moment. Trapped inside a cabin in the coldest inhabited place on Earth, waiting for a door to thaw. How does anyone end up in Yakutia? That's the question people ask when they hear about this place. It's not exactly on the tourist circuit. There's no tropical beach here, no ancient ruins, no theme parks, just cold, relentless, crushing, life-threatening cold. The kind of cold that has killed people who were experienced, prepared, and respectful of its power. And yet, 500,000 people live in the Sakha Republic, the official name for Yakutia. 500,000 humans have looked at this frozen wasteland and said, yeah, this seems like a good place to build a life. Some are indigenous Sakha people whose ancestors have survived here for millennia. Others came for the diamonds. Yakutia sits on one of the world's richest diamond deposits. Still others were sent here during Stalin's purges, forced to work in labor camps where the cold did more killing than the guards ever needed to. You came here for, well, that's a story for later. Right now, you're focused on the immediate problem of not dying in your sleep tonight because you can't get outside to get more firewood. The stove ticks and pings as the metal expands with heat. You can feel the temperature in the cabin rising, though rising is a generous term. Maybe it's minus 25 degrees Celsius now instead of minus 30 degrees Celsius. Progress is progress. Outside, the wind picks up properly now, and you hear it howling around the cabin's corners. Wind at these temperatures is its own special danger. Wind chill isn't just a number weathermen throw around to sound dramatic. At minus 71 degrees Celsius with even a moderate wind, exposed skin freezes in under 60 seconds. Your nose could literally snap off if you bumped it wrong. Your ears could shatter. These aren't metaphors. These are documented medical realities from this region. You shuffle back to the door and press your mittened hand against the wood near the frame. Still frozen solid. You're going to be here for a while. Might as well get comfortable. You drag your sleeping bag over to sit near the stove, arrange yourself in a nest of blankets and fur, and wait for the ice to surrender. The fire crackles. The wind howls. Your stomach rumbles, reminding you that you haven't eaten since yesterday afternoon, and your food supplies are. Well, some of them are in here, and some are in the outdoor cache buried in the snow to keep them frozen and safe from animals. The irony of needing a frozen storage cache in a place where everything is already frozen isn't lost on you. You close your eyes, just for a moment, and let the sound of the fire lull you into something approaching relaxation. The door will melt, eventually, probably, and then you'll face the real challenge. Actually going outside into that minus 71 degrees Celsius hellscape and surviving what promises to be the longest, coldest day of your life. But first, the door. Everything starts with the door. The fire in the stove has settled into a steady roar now, and you can actually feel warmth on your face when you lean close. It's a bizarre sensation. Your front is almost uncomfortably hot while your back remains frozen. You're essentially a rotisserie chicken, except instead of getting crispy and delicious, you're just trying not to develop frostbite on your backside while simultaneously not burning your eyebrows off. You didn't exactly plan to end up in Oymyakon. Nobody plans to end up in Oymyakon. It's not the kind of place that appears on bucket lists between see the northern lights and swim with dolphins. It's more the kind of place that appears in cautionary tales and survival documentaries narrated by people with very serious voices. 3 weeks ago, you were sitting in a considerably warmer location, let's say Moscow, because Moscow is actually tropical compared to where you are now, when you made the decision. You'd read about Oymyakon, about the cold pole of the world, about temperatures so extreme that the town's name allegedly comes from the Sakha word Kiam, meaning unfrozen patch of water or a place where fish spend winter. The irony is thick. The coldest inhabited place on Earth is named after water that doesn't freeze, probably because there's a natural hot spring nearby that keeps one small section of the Indigirka River liquid even in the depths of winter. Historians still argue whether Oymyakon or Verkhoyansk holds the official record for coldest inhabited place, but honestly, when you're splitting hairs between minus 67.7 degrees Celsius and minus 71.2 degrees Celsius, you're basically arguing about which circle of frozen hell is technically worse. Both are in Yakutia. Both are spectacularly inhospitable. Both seem like places where humans should not, by any reasonable standard, exist. The journey here took 3 days. First, a flight from Moscow to Yakutsk, the regional capital. Yakutsk itself is built entirely on permafrost, ground that has been frozen for thousands of years and goes down hundreds of meters. Buildings there sit on stilts driven deep into the permafrost because if you build directly on the ground, the heat from your building melts the permafrost, and your structure sinks into the resulting mud before refreezing at a jaunty angle. It's architectural whack-a-mole with your own house. From Yakutsk, you hired a driver with a specially modified UAZ vehicle, a Russian 4x4 that's been winterized to a degree that would make Arctic explorers nod with approval. The engine has a special heating system that runs off the battery to keep the oil from turning into jelly. The tires are rated for extreme cold. Every fluid in the vehicle is specially formulated. And still, your driver insisted on bringing enough emergency supplies to survive a week in a snowbank. Extra fuel, food, sleeping bags rated to -50 degrees Celsius, a satellite phone, and a shovel. Road to Oymyakon is not difficult, he'd said in heavily accented English, which you'd later realize was a hilarious understatement. Just very cold. Engine dies, you die. Simple. The Road of Bones, they call it. Officially the Kolyma Highway, but everyone knows it by its grimmer nickname. It earned that name during Stalin's Gulag era when prisoners built this road through the frozen wilderness, and thousands of them died in the process. Some say the bodies were buried in the roadbed itself, though that's probably apocryphal. Probably. The truth is grim enough without embellishment. Forced laborers worked in conditions that killed them regularly, and their sacrifice created the only road connection to this impossibly remote region. You remember looking out the window of the UAZ as forests gave way to tundra, as the trees became shorter and more sparse, as the landscape transformed into something that looked less like Earth and more like photographs from Mars, if Mars were white instead of red. The cold became a presence. You could feel it pressing against the vehicle's windows, searching for any crack or gap to slip through. Your driver pointed out various landmarks. Here is where I broke down last year. Was only -45 degrees Celsius, so was okay. He said this cheerfully, as if -45 degrees Celsius was a mild spring day. Here is where truck went through ice. Driver survived. He paused. Truck did not. The quirky thing about Yakutian drivers is that they measure distance not in kilometers but in fuel consumption and danger level. That town is 3 jerry cans away means something very different from that town is 5 jerry cans away, but only if weather is good and you don't break down. It's a more honest system, really. Oymyakon appeared on the horizon like a handful of buildings dropped into the snow by a careless giant. Population: approximately 500, though the number fluctuates with seasons. In summer, and yes, there is summer here, with temperatures occasionally reaching 30 degrees Celsius, which creates its own bizarre problems. The population swells slightly with researchers, adventurous tourists, and people visiting family. In winter, it shrinks to the hardcore residents who have nowhere else to go or nowhere else they want to be. Your cabin was arranged through a contact in Yakutsk, a researcher who studies climate adaptation. You want authentic experience? He'd asked. I get you authentic experience. No hotel. Cabin like locals use for hunting. You bring everything you need. Everything. He wasn't kidding. The cabin came with 4 walls, a roof, a stove, and absolutely nothing else. You'd had to bring your own sleeping bag, food, cooking equipment, fuel, candles, matches, and enough warm clothing to open a small Arctic expedition outfitters. The total weight of your gear exceeded 50 kilograms. 50 kilograms just to exist in this place for 2 weeks. The first night wasn't so bad. You'd arrived in late afternoon, such as it was, the sun barely clearing the horizon before giving up and sliding back down. You'd built a fire in the stove, heated some water for tea, eaten a meal of freeze-dried something or other that tasted like salted cardboard, and went to bed bundled in every layer you owned. You'd kept the fire going through the night that first time, feeding it religiously every 2 hours, and the cabin had stayed almost warm. Almost. The second day, you'd ventured outside to explore. That's when you'd learned your first critical lesson. Breathing is different here. Not metaphorically different. Literally, physically different. When you inhale air at -70 degrees Celsius, your lungs rebel. The air feels solid, crystalline. Your body isn't meant to process air this cold. Your nose tries to warm it, your throat tries to warm it, but there's only so much your internal heating system can do. The Saka people, indigenous to this region for thousands of years, have developed slightly different nasal structures through generations of adaptation. Their nasal passages are longer and more convoluted, giving the air more surface area to warm before it hits the lungs. It's a subtle evolutionary change, but out here, subtle changes mean the difference between thriving and merely surviving. You'd walked maybe 200 meters that second day before your face began to hurt. Not cold. Hurt. Pain. Your cheeks felt like they were being stabbed with tiny frozen needles. Your forehead ached. Your eyes watered. And the tears froze on your eyelashes, gluing them together until you had to manually pry them apart with your mittened fingers. You'd seen the famous photograph, the one tourists always take here, of a person throwing boiling water into the air and it instantly vaporizing into a cloud of ice crystals. You'd thought it was exaggerated for dramatic effect. It's not. You'd boiled water on your stove, carried the pot outside, and thrown the water skyward. It vanished, just completely disappeared into a cloud of steam and ice crystals that sparkled in the weak sunlight before dispersing. Water can't exist as liquid here. The air is so cold and so dry that liquid water flash freezes and sublimates almost simultaneously. Your nearest neighbor, the cabin 50 meters away, turned out to be occupied by an elderly Saka woman named Sardana. She'd appeared at your door on that second day, bundled in so many layers of fur and wool that she looked like a small, mobile haystack. She'd spoken in a mixture of Saka and Russian, neither of which you understand particularly well, but the universal language of "you're going to die if you keep doing what you're doing" came through clearly enough. She'd looked at your boots, expensive, modern, rated to -40 degrees Celsius, and shaken her head. She'd pointed at her own boots, traditional Saka mukluks made of reindeer hide with the fur turned inward, and then at yours and shaken her head again. Then she'd mimed frostbite by holding up her hands and wiggling her fingers, then making them stiff and still, then snapping one off. The message was clear: your fancy modern boots were going to cost you some toes. She'd returned an hour later with a pair of mukluks that had probably belonged to someone who'd since died or moved away. They were enormous, designed to be worn with multiple layers of socks and still have room for air circulation. Air, you'd learned, is insulation. The Saka people figured this out millennia before modern scientists started babbling about R values and thermal retention. Sardana had also brought you a baltaga, a traditional Saka tool that's part axe, part knife, part survival implement. It's about 1 meter long with a metal blade that curves at the end, and it's used for everything from chopping wood to building shelters to digging in frozen ground. She demonstrated its use by chopping through a log with 3 efficient strikes, then handed it to you and watched with what you're pretty sure was amusement as you struggled to replicate her technique. "In Yakutia," she'd said in slow Russian, "soft hands die quickly." You'd nodded, examining your soft, academic, definitely going to die hands with new appreciation for their fragility. That was 4 days ago. Since then, you'd fallen into a routine of sorts. Wake up, rebuild fire, melt snow for water, eat something, bundle up in approximately 15 kilograms of clothing. Go outside for an hour, maybe 2 if you're feeling brave. Come back inside. Rebuild fire. Repeat. It's not exciting, but excitement at -71 degrees Celsius usually means something has gone catastrophically wrong. You've been doing fine. Really, genuinely fine. You'd been keeping the fire going, keeping yourself fed, keeping frostbite at bay. You'd even started to feel a tiny bit confident, which is of course when Yakutia decided to teach you about hubris. Last night, exhausted from a day of splitting frozen wood, and frozen wood is harder than normal wood, requiring more strikes with the axe and more energy expenditure. You'd made the fateful decision to let the fire die, just for one night, just to get a full night's sleep without waking up every 2 hours to feed the stove. You'd burrowed into your sleeping bag, congratulated yourself on being tough enough to handle a little cold, and passed out. And now your door is frozen shut. You stand up from your nest near the stove and approach the door again. Press your hand against it. The wood is noticeably warmer than before, maybe even above freezing at this point. The ice around the frame has started to glisten with moisture rather than sitting there matte and frosty. You pull on the handle. The door moves just a millimeter, but it moves. Encouraging. You pull harder. Something cracks. Not the door breaking, but ice releasing its grip. You put your foot against the wall for leverage and pull with everything you've got. The door suddenly gives way, swinging inward so fast you stumble backward and land on your butt on the wooden floor. Cold air rushes in like a living thing, a wave of frozen atmosphere that makes your eyes water instantly. The temperature in the cabin plummets. You can literally watch your breath change from thin vapor to thick fog. You scramble to your feet and push the door closed again, but not before you've gotten a good look outside. The world is blue-black, stars still visible overhead. The first hint of dawn may be an hour away. The temperature has dropped even further overnight. The thermometer outside your window, the broken one, would read something truly absurd if it could still read anything. But the door is free. You can get out, which means you can get to your food cache, can get more firewood from the woodshed, can make the trek to Sardana's cabin to confirm she's still alive and not frozen solid in her sleep. The real challenge hasn't even started yet. You look at your pile of outdoor clothing in the corner, the layers you'll need to put on before you can safely step outside. There are so many layers. The process of getting dressed for a trip outside takes 15 minutes minimum, and that's if you're moving quickly. But first, you need to get the cabin warmer again. You load more wood into the stove, working the fire up to a roaring heat. Then you sit down to begin the elaborate ritual of Arctic dressing. Long underwear, then wool pants, then insulated outer pants. Thin wool shirt, thick wool sweater, down jacket, outer shell. 2 pairs of socks, then the mucklucks. Balaclava to cover your face except for a small gap for your eyes. Hat over the balaclava. Hood over the hat. Mittens over glove liners. By the time you're fully dressed, you look like a marshmallow had a baby with a Yeti. You can barely move your arms. You definitely can't touch your toes. But you're ready. You take a deep breath. Still warm cabin air. Savor it, and open the door. The cold hits you like a physical force. The first thing that happens when you step outside is that your breath crystallizes. Not in the metaphorical sense. Not in the poetic, oh look, I can see my breath sense. Your exhalation literally transforms into billions of tiny ice crystals that form a cloud around your face before falling to the ground with a sound like the whisper of wind through leaves. Except instead of leaves, it's ice. Falling ice breath. The locals call this phenomenon the whisper of stars, which is poetic and beautiful until you realize it means the air is so cold that the moisture from your lungs is flash freezing before it can dissipate. You take another breath, carefully, through the fabric of your balaclava, which helps warm the air slightly before it hits your lungs. Even so, you can feel the cold penetrating your chest. Your lungs protest. Every breath is work. Every breath reminds you that you are a tropical species, designed for African savannas and Mediterranean coastlines, not for this frozen moonscape masquerading as a Russian village. The sky above you is extraordinary. This far north, this far from any major city with essentially zero light pollution, the stars are not just visible, they're overwhelming. The Milky Way sprawls across the sky like someone spilled a bucket of diamonds on black velvet. You can see satellites drifting by. You can see the faint green shimmer of Aurora Borealis on the northern horizon, dancing like ghosts that can't quite decide whether to appear or not. But you're not here for stargazing. You're here to not die, which requires completing several critical tasks before the cold finds its way through your layers and starts doing permanent damage to your extremities. Task 1. Check on the thermometer. You shuffle. Walking normally is impossible in mucklucks with 6 layers on your legs. To the side of your cabin where you've mounted a special mercury-free thermometer rated to -80 degrees Celsius. It's one of the fancy ones filled with colored alcohol that doesn't freeze until temperatures that would kill you long before you could read it. You lean close, squinting in the pre-dawn darkness. -73 degrees Celsius. -73 degrees Celsius. That's -99.4 degrees Fahrenheit for those keeping track in freedom units. This is colder than the average temperature on Mars. This is approaching the temperature of dry ice. This is the kind of cold that appears in physics textbooks as an example of extreme conditions. You stare at the thermometer, waiting for it to laugh and admit it's joking. It doesn't. Thermometers have no sense of humor. The quirky reality is that at these temperatures, matter itself behaves differently. Rubber becomes brittle and shatters. Plastics crack. Steel becomes more fragile. And any exposed skin, we're talking seconds here, not minutes, will develop frostbite so severe that the tissue dies and turns black. You've seen the photographs. You've read the medical reports. You know that people have lost noses, ears, fingers, and toes to Yakutian winters. The local hospital in Yakutsk has an entire ward dedicated to frostbite cases during winter months. Task 2. Get to the woodshed. It's about 30 meters from your cabin, a distance that in normal conditions you could sprint in a few seconds. Here, in this cold, wearing these clothes, it's an expedition. You set off across the snow, each step crunching with a sound like styrofoam breaking. The snow here isn't the wet, packable snow of milder climates. It's dry and crystalline, more like sand than the snowballs you might remember from childhood. Halfway to the woodshed, you notice something odd about the air itself. It's shimmering, not like heat shimmer, the opposite. The extreme cold is creating ice crystals in the air itself, tiny floating diamonds that catch the starlight and make the whole world sparkle. It's beautiful. It's also terrifying because it means the air is so cold that it can't hold moisture in vapor form anymore. This is ice fog, the phenomenon that happens when the temperature drops below -60 degrees Celsius or so. You reach the woodshed, really just a lean-to with a corrugated metal roof, and stop to catch your breath. Except you can't actually catch your breath because breathing hard in this temperature is a great way to damage your lungs. You slow down, breathe shallowly through your balaclava, and wait for your heart rate to return to something approaching normal. The wood is stacked neatly, logs split and ready to use. You grab an armload, maybe 6 or 7 good-sized pieces, and turn to head back. That's when you make your first real mistake of the day. You forget about the metal. The wood is fine. Wood doesn't conduct heat particularly well, and through your thick mittens you can't even feel the cold. But one of the logs has a metal wedge still stuck in it from where it was split, and as you're adjusting your grip, your wrist, that tiny gap between your mitten and your jacket sleeve, brushes against the metal. The pain is instantaneous and shocking. It feels like you've pressed your wrist against a hot stove, except it's the opposite. The metal at -73 degrees Celsius is so cold that it burns. It literally burns because your skin cells are flash freezing and dying. You jerk your arm back, dropping 2 of the logs, and examine your wrist. Even in the dim starlight, you can see the skin has turned white. Not pink, not red, white. This is the first stage of frostbite. You know this because you've read the literature, studied the symptoms, prepared for this exact scenario. And still, it happened. 30 seconds of exposure, 1 moment of carelessness, and you've got frostbite. You run back to your cabin, moving as fast as the clothing and snow allow, and burst through the door. The wave of heat from your stove feels like salvation. You drop the wood in a pile, yank off your mitten, and examine your wrist. The white patch is about the size of a bottle cap. As you watch, holding it near the stove's warmth, color slowly returns. First a mottled pink, then red, then a deep angry crimson. It hurts. Not the sharp pain of the initial contact, but a deep, throbbing ache that feels like your wrist is being stung by 100 bees simultaneously. This is second-degree frostbite at worst. Painful but not permanently damaging if you treat it correctly. You grab your first aid kit, because of course you brought a first aid kit, you're not completely stupid, and apply a sterile dressing. The medical advice for frostbite is to rewarm slowly, avoid rubbing, which damages the frozen tissue, and definitely don't let it freeze again because freeze-thaw-freeze cycles destroy tissue completely. You sit there for a moment, heart pounding, wrist throbbing, and contemplate the fact that you've been outside for maybe 5 minutes and you've already injured yourself. 30 seconds of exposure to metal through a gap in your clothing. That's all it took. The Saka people have a saying, "The cold is not your enemy. Carelessness is your enemy. The cold just makes carelessness fatal." You're beginning to understand what they mean, but you can't hide in your cabin all day. You have tasks to complete, and sitting here nursing your wounded pride and wounded wrist won't get them done. You load the wood into your stove, banking the fire so it'll burn steadily for the next few hours. Then you re-examine your clothing for gaps. Wrists. You use cord to tie your mittens tighter to your jacket sleeves. Neck. You adjust your balaclava and ensure it overlaps with your jacket collar by at least 10 centimeters. Feet. You wiggle your toes inside the mucklucks, confirming you still have feeling in all of them. Task 3. Get to your food cache. This is critical because while you have some food inside the cabin, the bulk of your supplies are buried in a permafrost cache about 50 meters away. You'd learn this technique from Sardana. Dig a hole in the permafrost, line it with wood, store your food inside, cover it with more wood and snow. The permafrost stays at a constant -10 degrees Celsius or so, which is cold enough to keep food frozen but not so cold that it becomes rock hard and impossible to work with. You head back outside. The world has brightened slightly. Not sunrise yet, but the sky has shifted from black to deep blue. You can make out the shapes of other cabins now, the outline of the village, the distant mountains that ring this valley. Oymyakon sits in a valley, which is part of its problem. Cold air is denser than warm air, so it sinks. In winter, the coldest air in the entire region settles into this valley and just sits here, trapped by the surrounding mountains, getting colder and colder as heat radiates away into the clear sky. It's a natural cold trap. The valley fills with frozen air the way a bathtub fills with water, except instead of draining away, it just accumulates. Historians still argue whether humans first settled here because of the hot spring, that unfrozen water source in the depths of winter, or whether they came for other reasons and just had to adapt. Either way, people have lived in this region for at least 10,000 years. The Saka people, the Evenks, the Yukagirs, all of them figured out how to survive conditions that would have killed European explorers in days. You reach your food cache and start digging away the snow cover. Your breath comes in short puffs, each one creating its own little ice crystal cloud. You can feel sweat starting to form under your layers, a dangerous thing because sweat means moisture, and moisture freezes. You make a mental note to slow down, work more steadily, avoid overheating. The cache opens to reveal your supplies. Dried meat, freeze-dried meals, chocolate that's currently frozen harder than concrete, tea, sugar, some vegetables that you'd optimistically brought thinking you might cook them. The vegetables are now frozen solid and will probably shatter if you drop them. You grab what you need for the next few days and start to close the cache when you hear a sound. It's a crack, sharp and clear, like a gunshot echoing across the valley. You freeze, listening. Another crack, then another. You realize what you're hearing. The trees are exploding. This is a real phenomenon at extreme cold temperatures. The sap inside trees, even dormant winter sap, contains some water. When the temperature drops to -70 degrees Celsius or below, that water freezes and expands. The pressure builds inside the tree until the wood itself cracks, splitting with a sound like a rifle shot. In forests across Yakutia right now, trees are tearing themselves apart from the inside out. It's both beautiful and terrifying, nature's way of reminding you that you're not in control here. The cold is in control. The cold decides what survives and what doesn't. You hurry back to your cabin with your armload of food, moving carefully to avoid any more gaps in your clothing. The sky is definitely lighter now. Sunrise is maybe 20 minutes away. You'll get to witness the sun crawl above the horizon, give you about 4.5 hours of weak daylight, and then surrender and sink back down. It's February. The sun is as reluctant to be here as you probably should be. Inside the cabin, you strip off your outer layers and pile them by the door. Your core temperature is fine, all those layers work, but your extremities are cold. Your fingers are stiff. Your toes are numb. You spend 10 minutes sitting by the stove, flexing your hands and feet, encouraging blood flow, confirming everything still works. Your wrist throbs where you touched the metal. You unwrap the bandage and look at it. The skin is red and angry but not blistered. You'll live. You'll have a scar and a reminder to never, ever forget about exposed metal. But you'll live. You melt snow for water because running water is a fantasy here. Pipes would freeze solid in seconds and make tea. The act of holding the hot mug, feeling warmth seep into your hands, drinking liquid that's actually liquid and not frozen solid, feels like the height of luxury. Outside, you hear another tree explode. Crack, then silence, then another. The forest is waking up to the cold, and it's not happy about it. You sit in your cabin, sipping your tea, watching the light grow through your frosted window, and think about the fact that you've been awake for maybe 2 hours and you've already sustained an injury, nearly froze your lungs, and used up about a quarter of your physical energy just getting wood and food. This is survival in Yakutia. This is what every single day requires. And you've got weeks of this ahead of you. The sun finally peaks over the horizon, and the world transforms. The snow catches the light and glows pink, then orange, then gold. The ice crystals in the air become a million tiny rainbows. For just a moment, it's the most beautiful thing you've ever seen. Then you remember you still have to empty your waste bucket at some point today, which means another trip outside, and the beauty becomes slightly less beautiful. But that's a problem for later. Right now, you're warm, you're fed, and you're alive. In Yakutia, that's victory enough. You've been sitting by the stove for maybe 30 minutes, thawing out and working up the courage for your next task. When you hear it, a knock at your door. 3 solid raps that echo through the small cabin. For a moment, you wonder if you're hallucinating. Who in their right mind would be walking around outside in minus 73 degrees Celsius weather just to visit? Then you remember Sardana. She's checking on you. This is what neighbors do here. They check on each other because not checking means someone could be dead for days before anyone notices. You open the door to find her standing there, bundled in her usual collection of furs and woolens, looking like she's dressed for a mild autumn day rather than temperatures that would kill an unprepared person in minutes. Her eyes, the only part of her face visible between her fur hat and her scarf, crinkle in what you've learned to recognize as a smile. "You alive?" she says in Russian. It's not a question. It's an observation, delivered with the same tone you might use to comment on the weather. "Barely," you respond, also in Russian, gesturing at your bandaged wrist. She pushes past you into the cabin. Yakutian social norms don't include waiting for invitations when it's cold enough to kill, and examines your wrist with the practiced efficiency of someone who's treated frostbite hundreds of times. She pokes it. You wince. She nods, satisfied. "Small," she says. "You learn. Next time, no touch metal. Ever." "I know, No." She holds up a mittened hand. "You know nothing. You think you know. Different. I show you." For the next hour, Sardana proceeds to give you a crash course in Saka survival techniques that have been refined over literally thousands of years. The indigenous people of Yakutia didn't just survive in this environment, they thrived. They developed one of the most sophisticated cold weather cultures in human history, and you're about to get the abbreviated version. First lesson, breathing. You've been breathing wrong. Apparently there's a right way and a wrong way to breathe when it's cold enough to freeze your lungs, and you've been doing it wrong. You breathe like this, Sardana demonstrates, taking quick, shallow breaths through her mouth. Fast, cold goes straight to lungs. Bad. You breathe like this. She breathes slowly, deeply, through her nose, the air making a soft whistling sound as it passes through her nostrils. Nose warm air before lungs. Slow so air have time warm. Understand. You try it. Slow breath in through your nose, and immediately your nostrils try to freeze shut. The moisture in your nasal passages crystallizes, and you can feel your nostril hairs becoming stiff with frost. Sardana laughs, a sound like ice cracking on a river. Yes, this happen. Is normal. You keep breathing. Nose adapt. Second lesson, layering. You thought you had layering figured out. You don't. You've been wearing your layers too tight, which Sardana explains is rookie mistake number 1. The layers should be loose with air gaps between them. Air is insulation. Tight layers compress the insulating air out and also restrict blood flow, which means your extremities get cold faster. She makes you strip down, keeping the cabin door closed, thankfully, and redress properly. Base layer loose, middle layer loose, outer layer loose. Everything should move independently. You should look like you're wearing someone else's clothes, someone much larger than you. Saka people, we wear traditional clothing, she explains, gesturing at her own outfit. Fur turned in against skin, fur turned out against wind. 2 layers of fur, air between. Warmest possible. Your modern clothes. She shrugs eloquently. The shrug says everything about what she thinks of your expensive, high-tech, supposedly Arctic-rated gear. Third lesson, fat. You need to eat more fat. Way more fat. Your body is burning calories at an incredible rate just to maintain core temperature. The traditional Saka diet in winter is probably 60% fat, reindeer fat, horse fat, fish fat, any fat they can get. Fat is energy, energy is heat, heat is survival. Sardana produces from somewhere in her layers a package wrapped in cloth. Inside is frozen raw horse liver and a chunk of what appears to be pure fat. You eat, she instructs. Now, you look at the frozen liver, currently the consistency of a hockey puck, and back at her. Raw is frozen. No bacteria at this temperature. Very safe. Very nutritious. You eat. The quirky thing about Saka cuisine is that frozen raw is actually a food category. They have a dish called stroganina, thin slices of frozen raw fish or meat, eaten while still frozen. It's actually delicious once you get past the psychological hurdle of eating raw meat that's literally hard enough to use as a weapon. You take a small bite of the frozen liver. Actually not bad. It tastes clean, mineral-rich, and as it slowly melts in your mouth, releasing its flavor, you can understand why this has been a staple food here for millennia. It's pure nutrition, no cooking required, perfectly preserved by the cold. Sardana nods approvingly as you eat. Good. You learn. Fat keep you warm from inside. Tea keep you warm for 10 minutes. Fat keep you warm for hours. Fourth lesson, and this one surprises you, mental attitude. Sardana sits down on your one chair, you're still on the floor by the stove, and looks at you seriously. Cold not kill you, she says. Fear kill you. Panic kill you. Cold just cold. You respect cold. Prepare for cold. Cold is okay. You fear cold. You make mistakes. Mistakes kill you. This is something psychologists who study extreme environments have confirmed. Your mental state in survival situations matters as much as your physical preparation. People who panic burn through energy faster, make poor decisions, and often die when people with calmer mindsets survive the exact same conditions. The Saka people have known this forever. They've built it into their culture, their child-rearing practices, their entire worldview. In Gulag, Sardana continues, and you realize she's about to share something personal. My grandfather was prisoner. Stalin time. They send him here to Kolyma camps, thinking cold will kill him. Many prisoners died. Thousands died. But grandfather lived. You know why? You shake your head. He already Saka, already know cold, already know how to survive. Other prisoners from Moscow, from Ukraine, from warm places, they die first winter. They fear cold, they give up, they die. Grandfather just continue living, like normal. For him, this not punishment. This just home. Historians still argue whether the Kolyma camps were the worst of the Gulag system, or whether that distinction belongs to camps in other regions. But there's no argument that the Kolyma region, where you are right now, was deliberately chosen for its brutal climate. The cold was part of the punishment. Prisoners were sent here to mine gold, to cut timber, to build roads, and to die. Stalin's architects of terror understood that they didn't need gas chambers when they had Yakutian winters. The death toll is impossible to know precisely. The Soviet Union wasn't big on accurate record-keeping for things like, how many people did we kill? But estimates range from hundreds of thousands to over 1 million people who died in the Kolyma camps. Some from execution, some from starvation, but many simply from exposure. They were given inadequate clothing, inadequate shelter, inadequate food, and sent out to work in temperatures that would challenge even well-prepared modern expeditions. My grandfather tell me stories, Sardana says quietly. Prisoners try to escape. In summer, some succeed. In winter, she shakes her head. Winter escapees, they find bodies in spring. Maybe 5 kilometers from camp. Maybe 10. Not far, but far enough. Cold catch them. There's a long silence. Outside, another tree explodes with a crack that makes you both jump slightly. But grandfather survive. She continues, her voice brightening. He survive, he come home, he have children. I am here because he know cold. Because cold not his enemy. Fifth lesson, community. Sardana explains that traditional Saka villages survive winter through interconnection. Everyone checks on everyone. Everyone shares resources. You run out of firewood, your neighbor gives you firewood. Your neighbor's stove breaks, you share your stove. Someone gets sick, the whole village helps. Individualism is a luxury warm climates can afford. In Yakutia, community is survival. Why you here alone? She asks suddenly. This not smart. Alone in cabin in worst cold? You should be in village center with other people. You try to explain something about authenticity, about experiencing how it really is, about research or adventure or some other reason that sounds increasingly stupid as you say it out loud. Sardana listens, then shakes her head. Alone is for dying. Together is for living. You want authentic experience? Authentic experience is not dying alone in cabin like stupid tourist. Authentic experience is living with community. You come stay with me. I have extra room. You start to protest, but she cuts you off with a look that probably worked on her children and grandchildren and will definitely work on you. Not discussion. You pack important things. Come to my house. Stay until warm weather. April, maybe May. Or you stay here. Freeze. Die. And I tell your family I try to help but you too stubborn. The thing is, she's right. You know she's right. Solo survival in minus 73 degrees Celsius temperatures is the kind of thing people do right before they become cautionary tales. You've already gotten frostbite once, and it's not even noon yet. But there's something else in her offer. Genuine kindness. Sardana is offering to take in a stranger, feed them, house them, teach them, for no reason other than that's what you do in Yakutia. You don't let people die alone if you can help it. Okay, you agree. Thank you. Spasibo. She waves off the thanks. Is normal. Now you pack. I wait. Then we go. My house warmer than this place anyway. Real stove, real insulation, real windows that not grow ice on inside. You look around your cabin. The frost on the inside of the walls, the gaps in the floorboards, the single-pane window that's currently decorated with ice crystals thick enough to carve your name in, and realize she's not wrong. While you're packing your essential items into your backpack, Sardana keeps talking. She tells you about her family, about her children who move to Yakutsk for work, about her grandchildren who visit in summer. She tells you about the diamond mines that employ most of the region's population, about how Yakutia produces 99% of Russia's diamonds and a significant portion of the world's supply. The earth here is rich, not just in diamonds but in gold, in uranium, in oil and gas. We live on treasure, she says. Whole region is treasure. But treasure is frozen, hard to get. So we tough too. Have to be tough to live on frozen treasure. It's an interesting perspective. The harshness of the environment isn't a bug. It's a feature. It keeps the weak away, keeps the population small, keeps the land relatively pristine. Only the truly committed stay in Yakutia. Everyone else visits in summer, gets their diamonds or their research data or their adventure photos, and leaves before winter. You finish packing clothes, sleeping bag, first aid kit, your journal, some food. The rest you'll leave here. Sardana approves of your choices with a nod. Now we dress warm and go. Is only 50 meters but is 50 dangerous meters. You understand? You stay close to me. You follow exactly my steps. Snow hide holes sometimes. You fall in hole in this temperature. You die before I can get you out. She's not being dramatic. She's being accurate. A broken leg in these conditions equals death. A sprained ankle equals serious danger. You have to treat every step like it matters because it does. You bundle up again. Properly this time, with loose layers and air gaps and your wrists and neck completely covered. Sardana inspects you like a general inspecting troops, adjusts your scarf, tightens your hat, and finally nods. Good. Now you look like maybe you survive. We go. She opens the door, and you both step out into the blue-white world of a Yakutian afternoon, where the sun is already thinking about setting despite only recently rising, and the cold waits patiently for any mistake you might make. Sardana's cabin is identical in distance to yours, 50 meters, but feels like a journey to another planet. She moves across the snow with the confidence of someone who's made this walk 10,000 times, placing her feet carefully, testing the ground, choosing a path that you'd never have seen on your own. You follow in her footsteps literally, placing your mukluks exactly where hers were, trying to match her rhythm. The cold is different now than it was this morning. The sun, weak as it is, has risen above the horizon and is doing absolutely nothing to warm the air. If anything, it feels colder. This is a real phenomenon. Sometimes the coldest part of a winter day in Yakutia is mid-afternoon, when the combination of radiative cooling and the sun's low angle creates perfect conditions for temperature drops. Meteorologists still argue whether this effect is measurable or psychological, but standing here in it, you don't particularly care about the academic debate. It's cold. Debate over. Halfway to Sardana's cabin, you notice something strange on the ground. Patterns in the frost. Not natural patterns, but geometric ones like crop circles made of ice. Sardana sees you looking and stops. "Ice flowers," she says. "You see them." You look closer. The frost has formed into delicate, repeating crystalline structures, hexagons within hexagons, branching fractals, mathematical perfection rendered in frozen water vapor. They look like someone carved them with precision tools, but they're entirely natural, the result of water molecules organizing themselves according to the laws of physics at extreme temperatures. Beautiful, yes? Sardana says. Every winter they grow. Different patterns every time. Ice has memory, I think. Ice remember how to be beautiful. It's poetic and also kind of true. The crystal structure of ice does depend partly on the conditions under which it froze, temperature, humidity, pressure. Each set of conditions produces slightly different patterns. The ice flowers you're looking at formed overnight when your breath and Sardana's breath and the breath of every living thing in the village condensed on the snow and froze in these elaborate patterns. You want to take a photograph, but you know your phone is dead. You tried to charge it last night, and it had indicated full battery, but the moment you stepped outside this morning, it died. Lithium-ion batteries don't work at these temperatures. The chemical reactions that produce electricity slow down until they essentially stop. Your phone is just an expensive brick until you warm it up again. The quirky thing is that film cameras actually work better in extreme cold than digital ones. Old-school mechanical cameras with manual advance and manual focus will function at temperatures that kill electronics instantly. Soviet-era cameras, the kind built like tanks and designed for Siberian winters, are still the preferred choice for serious cold-weather photography. But you don't have one of those. You have a smartphone that thinks it's summer vacation and refuses to participate in your Arctic adventure. You continue walking and finally reach Sardana's cabin. From the outside, it looks similar to yours, log construction, peaked roof to shed snow, one small window. But when she opens the door and you step inside, the difference is immediately apparent. It's warm, actually genuinely warm. Not less cold than outside warm, but you could probably take your jacket off warm. There's a proper brick stove, bigger than yours, more efficient, radiating heat that fills the entire space. The walls are lined with additional insulation, layers of felt and animal hide that keep the warmth in and the cold out. The window is triple-paned and sealed with some kind of traditional putty that doesn't crack in the cold. "You see," Sardana says, pulling off her outer layers with practiced efficiency. "Real Saka house, built for cold. Your cabin is for summer hunting, not for winter living. I tell you this before you not listen." She's right. She had mentioned something about this, but you'd been too focused on the authentic experience to pay attention to practical details like, will this shelter actually keep me alive? The interior of her cabin is cozy in a way yours never was. There are furs on the floor, woven blankets hanging on the walls, shelves with clay pots and wooden bowls. A small shrine in one corner holds objects you don't immediately recognize, probably connected to Saka spiritual traditions that predate Russian Orthodox Christianity and have survived despite centuries of suppression. There's a radio on a shelf, currently silent, and a small collection of books in Russian and Saka. "Sit," Sardana commands, pointing at a chair near the stove. "I make tea. Real tea, not snowmelt water tea." She bustles around her kitchen area, if you can call it that. It's really just one corner with a counter and some storage, and you realize she has actual running water. Not a lot, not like a modern city apartment, but there's a tap and it's producing liquid water. "How?" you ask, gesturing at the tap. "Insulated pipes," she explains. "Very deep underground. Below, permafrost active layer. Water from hot spring, same spring that keep river unfrozen. Whole village center has water system. Old Soviet project actually work. Not common Soviet project success, but this one work good. The Soviet Union, for all its many faults, did understand cold weather infrastructure. They had to. A significant portion of their territory was permafrost, and they needed to house workers, mine resources, and project power into these frozen regions. Some of their solutions were elegant. Pipes buried deep, buildings on stilts, district heating systems that used waste heat from power generation. Other solutions were brutal. Send prisoners, don't worry if they die, send more prisoners. Sardana brings you tea in a ceramic mug that must be 500 milliliters at least. The tea is dark, fragrant, and has something floating in it. You look closer. Salt. She's put salt in the tea. Sock away, she explains, seeing your expression. Tea with salt, tea with butter, tea with milk. Not sweet tea like Russians. Salt tea help body keep warm, keep water balance. You drink. You like. You're skeptical, but you drink. And it's actually good. The salt brings out flavors in the tea you've never noticed before, makes it somehow more substantial, more warming. It tastes like something you could survive on, which is probably the point. While you drink, Sardana prepares food. She works with efficiency born of decades of practice, pulling items from her cold storage. A box built into the wall that opens to the outside, essentially a natural freezer, and arranging them on plates. Frozen fish, frozen berries, frozen bread, that chunk of fat she'd given you earlier. Everything frozen solid. In summer, she says conversationally, we preserve everything for winter. Fish, meat, berries, everything. Freeze it, keep it frozen, eat it all winter. No need for canning, no need for salt preservation. Winter is preservation. Cold is refrigerator. It's an elegant system. The environment that tries to kill you also preserves your food perfectly. The same temperature that freezes your door shut also ensures your food never spoils. You could drop a fish on the ground in November and pick it up in April, perfectly preserved. She sets the food on a low table near the stove and gestures for you to eat. Eat slowly, she instructs. Frozen food, you eat too fast, you hurt teeth, hurt stomach. Small bites, let melt in mouth. Like stroganina. You follow her instructions, taking small pieces of the frozen fish and letting them melt slowly. The texture is incredible. The flash freezing has kept all the moisture locked in. So as it melts, it releases its flavor in a way that cooked fish never does. It tastes clean, fresh, like the fish was caught this morning even though it's probably been frozen for months. My grandmother, Sardana says, settling into her own chair with her own plate. She lived to 97 years old. She eat like this every winter all her life. Frozen fish, frozen meat, berries, fat. Never sick. Never vitamin deficiency. Doctors from Moscow, they come to study old people here. Very confused. How you not sick? How you live so long in such terrible place? Grandmother tell them, place not terrible. Place perfect for people who know how to live here. This is actually true. Studies have shown that indigenous populations in Yakutia have surprisingly good health outcomes despite the extreme environment. Their traditional diet, high in omega-3 fatty acids from fish and rich in nutrients from organ meats and berries, provides everything the human body needs. Their lifestyle, requiring constant physical activity just to survive, keeps them fit. And their social structures, emphasizing community and mutual support, provide mental health benefits that urban populations often lack. Of course, modern health statistics for Yakutia are less rosy. Once Western diets were introduced, sugar, processed foods, alcohol, health outcomes declined dramatically. The traditional Saka diet evolved over millennia to suit this environment. The modern diet evolved to suit supermarket shelves and profit margins. You have family? Sardana asks between bites of frozen fish. You tell her about your family, wherever they are. Probably somewhere warm, probably worried about you, probably thinking you're insane for coming here. They right to worry, Sardana says bluntly. You not prepared for this, but you learning. This good. Many people come here, they not learn, they stay stupid until they die or leave. You learning. Maybe you survive. It's the nicest thing anyone said to you in weeks. After the meal, Sardana shows you where you'll sleep. A small room off the main living area, barely bigger than a closet, but it has a bed with real blankets and furs, and more importantly, it's warm. The heat from the main stove radiates through the walls. You rest now, she says. Tonight, I teach you more. Teach you about night survival, about reading ice, about finding direction in whiteout. Important knowledge. But now rest. You tired. Cold make everyone tired. She's right. You are tired. Exhausted, actually. The combination of cold stress, physical exertion, and constant vigilance has drained you more than a full day of normal activity ever would. Your body has been burning calories at an incredible rate just to maintain temperature. And now that you're warm and fed, all you want to do is sleep. You collapse onto the bed, the first real bed you've been in since arriving in Yakutia, and despite it being barely afternoon, you're asleep within minutes. You dream of ice flowers growing across landscapes, of trees exploding in the cold, of frozen fish swimming through air that's more crystal than gas. You dream of Sardana's grandfather walking across snow that stretches forever, surviving through knowledge and stubbornness and refusal to give the cold the satisfaction of killing him. When you wake, it's dark outside. The sun has set. You've slept for maybe 5 hours. You can hear Sardana moving around in the main room, hear the crackle of the fire, smell something cooking that makes your stomach wake up before the rest of you does. You emerge from your room, still groggy, and find her stirring a pot on top of the stove. Soup, she announces. Reindeer meat, vegetables from last summer, herbs. Very good. You eat. Then we talk about cold. The soup is indeed very good, rich and fatty and warming in a way that fills you from the inside out. You eat 2 bowls while Sardana watches with approval. Now, she says when you've finished, now I tell you about cold. Real cold. Not cold you experience today, that just practice cold. Real cold is different. Real cold is alive. Real cold think. Real cold wait for mistakes. She's not being metaphorical, you realize. She genuinely believes the cold has agency, has intelligence. It's an animistic worldview, common to many indigenous Arctic cultures. And while it's not scientifically accurate, it's functionally useful. Treating the cold as an intelligent adversary makes you more careful, more respectful, less likely to take risks. Coldest temperature I experience, Sardana continues, staring into the fire, was February 1976. Official temperature was minus 71.2 degrees Celsius. But in Valley, where cold settle, was colder. Maybe minus 75 degrees Celsius, maybe minus 80 degrees Celsius. No thermometer to measure. Too cold for thermometer. That night, 23 people die in region. Not from accident, just from cold. They sleep, they not wake up. Cold find them in sleep. This is the reality of extreme cold. It can kill you without warning. You go to sleep, your core temperature drops just a few degrees, your body can't compensate, and you don't wake up. It's called hypothermia, and it's insidious because it doesn't hurt. You just get sleepy, confused, and then you're gone. How do you survive a night like that? You ask. Sardana smiles. You not sleep. You keep fire burning. You keep moving. You drink hot tea all night. You wake up family members every hour. Make sure they still alive. You fight cold all night, every night until temperature rise. Sometime fight last 1 week. Sometime 2 weeks. You fight or you die. Simple. The way she says it, so matter of fact, makes it clear this isn't ancient history. This is her lived experience, and it could happen again any winter. The cold hasn't gone away. It's just waiting for the right combination of conditions to return with full force. Outside, you hear the wind picking up, hear it whistling around the corners of the cabin. Inside, the fire crackles and the temperature holds steady. For now, you're safe. For now, the cold is kept at bay. But the night is long in Yakutia, and there's still so much to learn. The wind outside has developed a voice. Not the gentle whisper from this morning, but a full-throated howl that sounds almost human. Almost like someone screaming in the distance. It's unnerving until Sardana explains that this is normal, that the wind rushing across frozen landscapes and through the gaps between buildings creates these sounds, that you get used to it or you go mad, and most people choose to get used to it. Wind is good, she says, which seems counterintuitive given that wind makes everything colder. Wind means weather changing, means maybe temperature rise. No wind, air just sit here, get colder and colder. Wind mix air, bring different temperature from somewhere else. She moves to her window and peers out through a small clear patch in the frost. Tomorrow may be warmer, maybe only -50 degrees Celsius. Almost tropical. You laugh and she shoots you a look that suggests she's not entirely joking. When your baseline is -70 degrees Celsius, a day at -50 degrees Celsius genuinely feels mild. It's all relative. The human capacity for adaptation is extraordinary, and nowhere is that more apparent than in places like Yakutia where people have adapted to conditions that should, by all reasonable standards, be uninhabitable. Sardana returns to her chair and settles in with her tea. Now I tell you about daily routine. Real routine, not tourist routine. You want authentic experience? I give you authentic experience. She proceeds to outline a typical winter day for a Yakutian resident, and it's simultaneously mundane and extraordinary. Wake up before dawn. Not difficult because dawn is late and brief. First task, check the stove, add wood if needed. The stove can never go completely cold. Ever. A cold stove in winter means hours of work to restart it properly, and in extreme cold, those hours could kill you. Second task, check yourself. Fingers, toes, nose, ears, wiggle everything. Confirm everything still has feeling and blood flow. Any numbness gets immediate attention. Frostbite caught early can be treated. Frostbite caught late means amputation. Third task, water. If you have running water from the hot spring system, you're lucky. If not, you melt snow. But not just any snow, you need to collect snow from specific places. Fresh snow from the top layer is best. Relatively clean. Old snow near the ground might be contaminated with animal waste or other nastiness. You bring the snow inside, let it melt slowly near the stove, boil it, let it cool. This process takes time. Everything takes time when it's this cold. In Soviet times, Sardana says, they bring water trucks around, big tanker trucks with insulated tanks, deliver water to houses without pipes. But trucks break down in cold. Engine freeze, wheels freeze, driver freeze. Many winters, no truck. You on your own. Fourth task, food. Breakfast is critical because your body needs fuel for the metabolic furnace that's keeping you alive. Remember that fat Sardana gave you? That's breakfast. Fat, meat, maybe some berries if you have them. Tea with salt and butter. Bread if you have it, though making bread in winter is challenging because yeast doesn't like being frozen and ovens require a lot of fuel. You eat like bear preparing for hibernation, Sardana explains. Except you not hibernate. You just burn calories fast. Very fast. Normal person need maybe 2,000 calories per day. Person living in Yakutia winter need maybe 4,000, maybe 5,000. You not eat enough, you lose weight, you lose insulation, you get cold easier, you die. The science backs this up. Humans in extreme cold environments can burn twice as many calories as those in temperate climates, just from the work of staying warm. Shivering alone can burn hundreds of calories per hour. Add in the physical labor of surviving, chopping wood, hauling water, getting dressed in 15 layers, and you're looking at serious energy expenditure. Fifth task, getting dressed for outside. This isn't a 5-minute process. This is a ritual that takes minimum 15 minutes and requires planning. First, you assess where you're going and how long you'll be out. Short trip to the outhouse? Minimal layers. Trip to the village center or to check on neighbors. Full gear. Extended time outside? Everything you own, plus hand warmers, plus backup mittens, plus emergency supplies. You always tell someone where you're going, Sardana emphasizes. Always. You go to check on neighbor, you tell me. I go to village center, I tell you. Someone always know where everyone is. This how we not lose people. Well, this how we not lose people often. The implication being that people still get lost, still disappear into the white, still make fatal mistakes despite all the precautions. Sixth task. The actual reason you went outside. Collect water. Get firewood. Check on animals if you keep reindeer or horses. Visit neighbors. Go to work if you're one of the people employed at the diamond mines or other industries. Every task takes 3 times longer than it would in normal conditions. Every task carries risk. The quirky reality of working in Yakutian diamond mines is that they're some of the most productive in the world, pulling up billions of dollars worth of gems from permafrost that makes excavation incredibly difficult. The ground is frozen solid to a depth of 1,500 meters in some places. You can't just dig through it, you have to use explosives or massive hydraulic equipment, or in some cases, thaw it first with hot water. The entire mining process has to be adapted for cold that would shut down operations anywhere else. My son work in diamond mine, Sardana says with obvious pride. He engineer. Design equipment that work at low temperature. Important work. Diamonds pay for everything here, schools, hospitals, roads, everything. We live on frozen treasure. Remember? Diamonds buy better life for next generation. 7th task. Coming back inside. This requires its own ritual. You can't just burst into a warm room when you're frozen. The temperature shock can cause problems. You stand in the entrance area, the mud room or whatever buffer space exists between outside and inside. You brush off snow and ice. You let your body temperature start to rise gradually. You remove outer layers slowly, checking for any ice buildup, any tears, any problems that need fixing before next time. You bring ice inside, it melt, it make water freeze again when temperature drop, Sardana explains. Then you have ice inside house. Very bad. So you remove all snow and ice before entering warm area. 8th task. Maintenance. Your clothing needs daily attention. Mittens and boots need to be dried, but not too fast or the materials crack. Furs need to be beaten to remove ice crystals. Wool needs to be checked for wear. Everything needs to be ready for tomorrow because tomorrow you'll need it all again. In old times, women spend hours every day on clothing maintenance, Sardana says. Was not luxury, was survival. Hole in mitten kill husband. Tear in boot kill son. So we sew, we patch, we maintain. Every day. 9th task. Evening meal. More fat, more meat, more calories. The evening meal is typically the larger one because you're not going outside again until morning. You can eat until you're genuinely full. Let your body process the energy overnight. And then, Sardana says, you prepare for night. You check stove, make sure have enough wood for night. You check doors and windows, make sure properly sealed. You check family members, make sure everyone healthy and warm. You set up watch schedule if cold is very bad. Watch schedule, you ask. Someone stay awake, keep fire burning, watch for problems. Every few hours, different person. So everyone gets some sleep but fire never go out and no one freeze. During very cold periods, below -65 degrees Celsius, we do this every night. Not optional, is survival. The picture she's painting is one of constant vigilance, where survival requires daily effort and community coordination. There's no autopilot here. You can't just set a thermostat and forget about it. Every day demands active engagement with the environment, and any lapse in attention can be fatal. You think this sound hard, Sardana observes, watching your face, but is normal for us. Is just life. Your life, you have different challenges. Traffic, pollution, crowds, stress from work that not physical. Our life, we have cold. We know cold. We prepare for cold. Cold is honest. Yes, honest enemy. Cold not lie, not cheat, not change rules. Cold just cold. You respect cold. Cold let you live. There's wisdom in this perspective. The cold is brutal but predictable. It doesn't discriminate, doesn't play favorites, doesn't have moods. It's a force of nature that operates according to physical laws. And if you understand those laws and prepare accordingly, you can survive. It's almost reassuring in its consistency. Hardest part, Sardana continues, is not physical. Physical, you can train body, you can adapt. Hardest part is psychological, is darkness, is isolation, is feeling like world end at edge of village because beyond village is just white death. Some people, they not handle this. They develop what Russians call polar madness. Mind break from isolation and dark. This is a documented phenomenon in extreme Arctic conditions. Prolonged darkness and isolation can trigger depression, psychosis, and other mental health crises. The lack of sunlight affects circadian rhythms and serotonin production. The isolation reduces social interaction and mental stimulation. The constant cold creates chronic stress. Put it all together and you have a recipe for psychological breakdown. Is why community so important, Sardana emphasizes. Is why we visit each other, why we share food, why we tell stories. Is mental survival, not just physical survival. A lone person in winter is dead person, even if body's still alive. You think about your plan to spend 2 weeks alone in that hunting cabin and feel retroactively stupid. If Sardana hadn't checked on you, if she hadn't essentially forced you to move in with her, you might have lasted another week before something went wrong. A bigger injury from the cold, a problem with the stove, or just the slow deterioration of judgment that comes from isolation and stress. How do you stay sane? You ask. Months of darkness and cold. How do you not go crazy? Sardana considers this, sipping her tea. We celebrate, she finally says. We make holidays, we make traditions. We make reasons to be together and be happy. In darkest part of winter, we have biggest celebrations. Isiaq Festival, traditionally summer festival, but we celebrate small version in winter too. We sing, we dance, we tell stories, we drink kumis, fermented mare's milk, and we remember that winter not forever. Spring always come. Sun always come back. She stands and goes to a shelf, pulling down a wooden box. Inside are photographs, some in color, some in black and white, spanning decades. She shows you pictures of Isiaq celebrations. People in traditional dress, horses decorated with bells and ribbons, children playing games, communal meals spread across long tables. This my favorite photo, she says, holding up an image of a young woman in elaborate traditional Saka clothing, layers of embroidered fabric, silver ornaments, a distinctive hat. This my grandmother, 1952. She 19 years old. 2 years before Stalin died. Everyone hope for better life. This photo show hope. Historians still argue whether Stalin's death materially improved conditions in places like Yakutia, or whether the improvements would have happened anyway as the Soviet Union modernized. But for people living through it, the symbolic importance of his death, the death of the man who'd sent millions to the gulags, who'd engineered famines and purges, can't be overstated. Grandmother tell me that photo day was minus 58 degrees Celsius. Sardana continues. But she wear traditional dress anyway for photo because was important. Keep culture alive, keep identity alive, even when government try to make everyone same Soviet person. Cold freeze body, but culture warm soul. She returns the photos to their box with obvious care, treating them like the treasures they are. This what survive cold, she says. Not just technology, not just clothing. Stories survive cold. Songs survive cold. Identities survive cold. You ask how we stay sane? We stay sane by being Saka, by being part of people with 10,000 years history in this place. We belong here. Cold know we belong here. Cold try to kill us, yes, but cold also respect us. Strange relationship, maybe, but is our relationship. Outside, the wind reaches a new pitch, shrieking around the cabin's corners. Something metallic clangs, maybe a loose piece of roofing, maybe a tool left outside. The sound echoes across the frozen landscape and then is swallowed by the wind. Storm coming, Sardana announces calmly, as if she can read the weather in the wind's voice. Big storm. We stay inside tomorrow, maybe next day. Good thing you here with me, not alone in hunting cabin. That cabin not built for storm. You be dead tomorrow if you stay there. The casual way she says it, you be dead tomorrow, drives home just how close you came to a very stupid death. Pride almost killed you. The desire for an authentic experience almost became an authentic corpse. Thank you, you say, and you mean it completely, for checking on me, for bringing me here, for everything. Sardana waves it off. Is what neighbors do, is what humans do. We help each other or we all die alone. Simple. She's right. It is simple. In harsh environments, humans figured out long ago that cooperation beats competition, that community beats individualism, that helping others helps yourself. These aren't abstract moral principles in Yakutia, they're survival strategies that have been proven over thousands of years. The fire crackles, the wind howls, and you're warm and safe and alive. Tomorrow you'll learn about surviving storms. Tonight you'll sleep in a real bed, in a real house with a neighbor who's decided you're worth keeping alive. In Yakutia, that's the highest compliment you can receive. The storm arrives just before dawn with a roar that sounds like freight trains colliding. You wake from dreams of warmth and safety to a reality that's somehow both. You're warm and safe inside Sardana's cabin. But outside, the world has transformed into a screaming white chaos that wants to kill anything stupid enough to venture into it. You stumble out of your small room to find Sardana already awake, standing by her window and peering out through the one clear spot in the frost. "Big storm," she confirms without turning around. "Maybe 3 days. Maybe more. We have food, have firewood, have water. We fine. But we not go outside. Not for anything. What if someone needs help?" you ask. She turns to look at you, her expression serious. In storm like this, at temperatures like this, you go outside to help someone, now 2 people dead instead of 1. Sound cruel, but is reality. Storm this bad, everyone stay inside, take care of themselves. When storm over, we check on everyone. Find who survive, bury who don't. The brutality of this calculus is shocking, but it's also logical. In conditions where exposure kills in minutes, attempting rescue often just adds to the death toll. Better to wait, survive, and deal with the aftermath than to lose more people to heroic stupidity. You join her at the window and look out. The world has vanished. There's no visibility beyond maybe 2 meters. Everything is white. Not the white of fresh snow, but the white of air so full of ice crystals and wind-driven snow that it's become opaque. The temperature, according to Sardana's thermometer mounted just outside her window, has dropped to -76 degrees Celsius. With the wind factoring in the effective temperature, the rate at which exposed flesh would freeze is beyond measurement. Beyond meaning, really. At these conditions, the difference between -80 degrees Celsius and -100 degrees Celsius is academic. Both kill you almost instantly. "Coffee," Sardana offers, which seems absurdly civilized given the apocalyptic conditions outside. "Please," you respond, because coffee is always appropriate, even at the end of the world. She prepares it using her small stove, actual coffee, not tea, which is apparently a luxury she saves for special occasions. Storm days apparently qualify as special occasions. The smell fills the cabin, rich and comforting, a small defiance against the chaos outside. During Gulag times, Sardana says as she pours the coffee into mugs, storms like this kill more prisoners than guards ever did. Prisoners have to work outside even in storm. Mining quotas, timber quotas, construction quotas, work never stop, no matter weather. Prisoners go out in this, they freeze in minutes. Guards watch from warm buildings. This is the dark history of Yakutia that you can't ignore, even in Sardana's cozy cabin. The Kalima camps, the road of bones, the gold mines built on corpses. All of it happened here in living memory. Sardana's grandfather survived it. Millions didn't. The Soviet labor camp system in Yakutia was operational from the 1930s through the 1950s, with some camps continuing into the 1960s. Prisoners were sent here for crimes real and imagined. Political dissent, ethnic identity, religious belief, or simply being in the wrong place when the NKVD needed to fill quotas. They arrived in cattle cars, were marched to camps in inadequate clothing, and were immediately put to work in conditions designed to extract maximum labor before inevitable death. My grandfather never talked much about camp, Sardana continues, settling into her chair with her own coffee. But sometime in winter, when winds sound like this, he tells small stories. He tell about prisoner from Georgia, warm place, Georgia, who see first Yakutia winter and just give up. Man sit down in snow and wait to die. Grandfather try to help him, tell him how to survive, but man just shake head. This not world for humans, he say. This world for demons and ice. Then he close eyes and that was end. The story sits heavy in the warm cabin. Outside, the wind shrieks. But grandfather also tell different story, Sardana says, her voice lighter. He tell about prisoner from Kazakhstan who learned to survive. Man watch Saka guards, watch how they dress, how they move, how they breathe. Man steal extra clothing. Learn to make fire from almost nothing. Learn which snow safe to eat. Man survive 4 years in camp, survive until Stalin die and they release him. He go back to Kazakhstan, live long life. Sometimes you give up, sometimes you adapt. Is choice. Historians still argue whether the survival rate in Kolyma camps was better or worse than in other parts of the Gulag system. The cold was deadly, yes, but the remote location meant diseases spread less easily, and the permafrost meant bodies didn't rot and spread contamination. These are grim calculations, comparing which hell was slightly less hellish, but they matter when trying to understand history. The wind outside intensifies, if that's even possible. Something crashes, maybe a small building collapsing, maybe a tree finally surrendering to the storm. The sound is muffled by the wind and distance, but it's distinctly the sound of destruction. We play game, Sardana announces suddenly. Storm day tradition. We play game to pass time. She produces from somewhere in her cabin a set of carved wooden pieces. Figures of animals, humans, geometric shapes. Kabbalic, she explains. Traditional Saka game. Very old. Teach strategy, teach patience, teach reading opponent. You know chess. You nod. Similar but different. I teach you. For the next hour, while the storm rages outside, Sardana teaches you this ancient game. The rules are complex, involving movement patterns that mirror animal behaviors, positions that represent different terrains, and a win condition that requires not just defeating your opponent but achieving what she calls harmony. A board state where your pieces are arranged in specific patterns that show mastery of the game's philosophy, not just its mechanics. You lose spectacularly in the first 3 games. Sardana is patient but merciless, exploiting every mistake, showing you where you went wrong, then exploiting the same weakness again to make sure you learn. By the 4th game, you manage to last more than 10 moves. By the 5th, you almost achieve one of the harmony patterns before she blocks it. Good, she says with evident satisfaction. You learn fast. This important skill, learning fast. In an environment like this, slow learner is dead learner. She's right, of course. Everything in Yakutia seems designed to teach you lessons quickly and brutally. Touch metal with bare skin? Instant frostbite teaches you never to do that again. Let your fire go out? Nearly freezing to death teaches you about priorities. The environment doesn't give second chances graciously. It gives them grudgingly, and only if you're lucky. Around midday, though you only know it's midday because Sardana checks her clock, not because there's any change in the darkness outside. She prepares lunch. More frozen fish, more fat, more of that salted tea that you're actually starting to crave. Your body has figured out that this fuel works, that this combination of fats and proteins and salt provides what you need to survive here. You lose weight, Sardana observes, studying you. Since you arrive, I see in your face. Not good. You need eat more, gain weight back. Fat is insulation. Remember? She's right. You can feel it in how your clothes fit slightly looser, how your ribs are more prominent. The cold has been burning through your calories faster than you've been replacing them. If you'd stayed alone in that cabin another week, you might have wasted away even while eating what you thought was enough. The quirky thing about fat is that it's not just insulation, it's also a metabolic buffer. When your body runs out of readily available calories, it starts burning fat. But the process of converting fat to energy requires oxygen. And in extreme cold, your cardiovascular system is already working overtime to maintain core temperature and deliver oxygen to extremities. Adding the metabolic load of burning fat reserves can strain the system past its limits. Better to eat enough that your body doesn't have to dip into reserves. After lunch, Sardana brings out a different kind of treasure. Photographs and documents from her family's history. There are papers in Cyrillic script, some so old the ink has faded to brown. There are more photographs spanning what looks like a century or more. There are objects, a carved bone needle, a beaded bracelet, a small silver ornament that she says was used in shamanic rituals before the Soviets banned such things. This our history, she says, handling each item with reverence. Saka people, we hear for very long time. Russians arrive, this only 400 years ago. Before Russians, we hear. Before Mongols, we hear. Some say we hear for 10,000 years, maybe more. The Saka people's origins are actually a subject of ongoing anthropological debate. Genetic studies suggest they migrated from the Lake Baikal region, bringing with them horse breeding culture and metalworking skills. They adapted to the Arctic environment while maintaining cultural practices from warmer climates. An unusual combination that created a unique culture that could both breed horses and survive the coldest temperatures on Earth. We not indigenous to here, Sardana clarifies, seeing your confusion. Evenks, Yukagirs, they hear first. We arrive maybe 800 years ago, push north, adapt. But 800 years is long time. Long enough to become part of land. Long enough for land to become part of us. She shows you a photograph of a man in traditional dress, standing next to a horse decorated with elaborate tack. This my great-grandfather. He owned many horses, was considered wealthy man. Horses very important to Saka. We breed special Yakutian horses. Small, very strong, very cold resistant. Can survive winter eating snow and dry grass. No other horse breed can do this. This is true. Yakutian horses are genetic marvels, adapted over centuries to survive conditions that would kill any other horse breed within days. They grow thick winter coats, can lower their metabolic rate to conserve energy, and have enhanced blood circulation to their extremities. They're living proof of evolution in action, of adaptation to extreme environments. Communists take all horses. Sardana continues, her voice hardening. Say horses belong to collective now, not to individuals. Great-grandfather lose everything. Die poor. But horses survive. Yakutian horses still here, still strong. Outlast communism. There's satisfaction in her voice, a sense that the horses got the last laugh. The afternoon drifts by in this way. Stories and photographs and small revelations about life in this frozen corner of the world. Sardana tells you about the traditional Saka dwelling, the Uresa, a conical structure made of wood and birch bark that could be assembled and disassembled as people moved with their herds. She tells you about kumis, the fermented mare's milk that was both food and medicine. She tells you about the Isiak festival, the great summer celebration of the sun's return, with its ritual offerings and communal feasting. Now we live in Russian-style houses, she says, gesturing around her cabin. Solid, permanent, warm. Better for winter, maybe, but something lost too. Uresa could move with seasons, move with herds. House tie you to one place, make you less free. It's a common theme in indigenous cultures worldwide. The trade-off between traditional mobility and modern permanence. Permanent structures offer better protection from elements but reduce flexibility. Settled living enables accumulation of possessions but makes people more vulnerable to environmental changes and political control. By evening, again, clock evening, not visible evening, because outside remains absolutely dark. The storm shows no sign of abating. If anything, it's intensified. The wind shakes the cabin's walls, finds every tiny gap, probes for weakness. But Sardana's cabin holds. The logs are thick, the chinking is good, the roof is strong. This cabin was built by people who understood storms, who built not for sunny days but for the worst days, because the worst days are what kill you. Tomorrow, Sardana says as she prepares dinner, if storm continue, I tell you about my grandmother's survival during 1942 winter. Very bad winter. War happening, all men gone to fight Germans. Only women and children and old people left in village. Coldest winter in memory. Many die. Grandmother survive. Keep family alive. Important story. Remind us what humans can survive if they must. You help her with dinner or try to help, though she keeps correcting your technique for everything. How to hold the knife when cutting frozen meat. Different from cutting fresh meat, because frozen meat can shatter. How to arrange food on a plate. Practical considerations about what will thaw first. How to time the tea so it's ready exactly when the food is ready. A matter of efficiency and fuel conservation. Every action in Yakutia you're learning has been optimized through generations of trial and error. There's no wasted movement, no unnecessary expenditure of energy or resources. It's a culture of efficiency born from necessity, where waste can mean death and careful planning means survival. After dinner, you both sit by the stove, the warmth radiating across your faces, and listen to the storm. It's almost meditative, the howl of wind, the occasional crack of something breaking outside, the steady crackle of fire inside. You're in a bubble of warmth and safety, surrounded by apocalyptic conditions, and somehow it's peaceful. You understand now? Sardana asks quietly. Why we live here? Why we stay? You think about your answer. I'm starting to. Is not just stubbornness, she continues. Is not just diamonds or resources. Is belonging. This land hard, yes. This land kill you if you make mistake, yes. But this land also honest. This land make you strong or make you dead. No middle ground. No pretending. You either know how to live here or you don't. You either part of land or you not. A part of land. My ancestors part of land. Land part of me. Where else I go? Warm place where I not belong. No. Better to be cold in place where I belong than warm in place where I stranger. It's a profound statement, and it sits in the warm cabin alongside the wind and the fire and the photographs of ancestors who survived even worse than this. Outside, the storm continues its assault on the world. Inside, you're learning that survival isn't just about technology or preparation or knowledge. It's about identity, about belonging, about the stories you tell yourself about who you are and where you fit in the world. The Saka people fit here. They've earned their place through 800 years of adaptation and survival. And for these few days, sheltered in Sardana's cabin, you get to be part of that story. A very small part, a footnote really, but part of it nonetheless. The storm lasts 3 days. 3 full days of howling wind and impenetrable white darkness. 3 days of being confined to Sardana's cabin while the outside world tries to erase itself. On the morning of the 4th day, you wake to silence. Not the muffled silence of snow, but actual silence. The absence of wind, the absence of that constant roar that had become the background noise of existence. You emerge from your small room to find Sardana already up, already dressed in her outdoor layers, already preparing to venture outside for the first assessment. Storm over, she announces. Now we see what survive and what don't. The process of getting dressed for outside has become almost meditative. You layer yourself methodically, checking each piece, ensuring no gaps, no exposed skin. Your wrist has healed, mostly, but the white scar remains as a permanent reminder of your carelessness. You're not eager to collect any more reminders. When Sardana finally opens the door, the world that greets you is transformed. Snow has drifted against buildings in waves that reach halfway up walls. The path between cabins has vanished under meters of fresh accumulation. Everything is sculpted by wind into fantastic shapes. Sharp-edged dunes, sweeping curves, geometric patterns that look almost architectural. The temperature has risen. It's only minus 61 degrees Celsius now, practically balmy after the storm's minus 76 degrees Celsius. You can actually feel the difference. Breathing is slightly easier, the air less aggressive in its assault on your lungs. But the real shock is the silence. After 3 days of constant wind roar, the stillness is almost oppressive. You can hear your own heartbeat, hear the crunch of snow under your mucklucks, hear the distant crack of a tree somewhere in the forest. The world feels like it's holding its breath. We check neighbors, Sardana says, already moving toward the nearest cabin. Then we check whole village. Then we dig out. Busy day. The first cabin, the one about 30 meters away, shows smoke rising from its chimney. Good sign. Sardana knocks on the door, calls out in Saka, waits. A voice responds from inside, and she nods with satisfaction. Alive, she reports. Good. The second cabin is dark. No smoke. Sardana's expression tightens. She knocks harder, calls louder. Nothing. She tries the door. Locked from inside. She circles the building, checking windows, calling out. Still nothing. We break in, she decides. If they alive, they forgive us. If they dead, they not care. She produces her bolt aga and uses it to pry at a window. The wood is frozen solid, but she's patient and methodical, working the blade into gaps, leveraging, prying. After 10 minutes, the window gives way with a crack that echoes across the stillness. She climbs through, remarkably agile for a woman her age, and you hear her moving around inside. A long pause, then her head appears at the window. Empty, she reports. They go to Yakutsk before storm. Lucky them. You help her secure the window again and you move on. Cabin by cabin, you work through the village. Most show signs of life. Smoke, voices, movement. A few are empty, their occupants having left before winter's worst. But one cabin, on the village's far edge, is occupied and silent. This time, when Sardana breaks in, you hear her sharp intake of breath. She doesn't say anything for a long moment. Then, go find others. Tell them bring sled. And blankets. You don't need to ask what she found. The tone of her voice tells you everything. You trudge through the snow to the nearest occupied cabin, deliver the message, and within 20 minutes, half a dozen villagers have assembled with a sled and supplies. The man in the cabin, you never learn his name, is dead. He's in his bed, looking almost peaceful, frozen solid. The stove in his cabin went out sometime during the storm, and the cold found him in his sleep. He probably never woke up, probably never felt the hypothermia stealing over him, probably died dreaming of warmer days. The villagers handle it with practiced efficiency that speaks to how common this is. They wrap the body in blankets, load it onto the sled, and transport it to what Sardana calls the winter storage, a building designed specifically to hold bodies until spring when the ground thaws enough to dig graves. You can't bury people in Yakutian winter. The ground is frozen solid to depths that would require industrial equipment to penetrate. So bodies are stored, frozen, perfectly preserved by the same cold that killed them, waiting for May or June when burial becomes possible. He was old. One of the villagers says in Russian, seeing your expression. 83, maybe 84. Live good life. Better to die in sleep than to die from accident or from illness. Good death is a perspective that seems callous until you remember where you are. In a place this harsh, death is always present, always waiting. The best you can hope for is that it comes quickly and without too much pain. The man in his bed got that. Many don't. The body count, after checking the entire village. 1 dead, 2 injured, frostbite from before the storm, treated with traditional remedies. 17 alive and well, 6 evacuated before the storm. Not a bad outcome for 3 days of apocalyptic weather. Could be worse, Sardana confirms. Storm in 1956, 12 people die in our village alone. Storm in 1976, 23 people die in region. This storm? Just one old man who time come anyway. We do okay. The village now turns its attention to digging out. Paths need to be cleared between cabins. Roofs need to be checked for damage and excess snow load. Food caches need to be accessed. Outbuildings need to be inspected. It's a massive undertaking, and everyone capable of working participates. You spend the next 6 hours shoveling snow. It's brutal work. The snow is dry and light, which helps, but there's so much of it. Meters and meters of accumulation that needs to be moved, carved into paths, cleared from critical areas. Your muscles scream, your back aches. You drink gallons of melted snow water to stay hydrated. But you work because everyone works, because this is what survival requires. By mid-afternoon, the sun making its brief, reluctant appearance, the main paths are cleared. The village looks almost normal again, or at least as normal as a collection of cabins at minus 60 degrees Celsius can look. People move between buildings, checking supplies, sharing food, swapping storm stories. The mood is almost festive, that giddy relief of having survived something that could have killed everyone. Sardana invites several neighbors to her cabin for what she calls a survival celebration. They arrive with food and drink. Someone has actual vodka, someone else has fermented mare's milk. Another person brings frozen berries that are somehow still delicious months after harvest. You crowd into Sardana's cabin, maybe 8 people total, and it's warm and loud and alive in a way that feels like defiance against the cold outside. The stories start flowing. Everyone has storm stories, death-defying moments, close calls. One man tells about the time he fell through ice into a river and had to run 3 kilometers back to his cabin. His clothes freezing solid as he ran, arriving more ice sculpture than human but still alive. A woman tells about getting lost in a whiteout, walking in circles for hours, saved only when she literally stumbled into her own cabin after nearly freezing to death 20 meters from safety. Sardana tells the story she promised you, about her grandmother in 1942, during the worst winter of World War II. All men gone to fight, she says, her voice carrying over the conversation. Just women, children, old people, and invalids left. Temperature dropped to minus 75 degrees Celsius. Stay there for 2 weeks. No fuel, no food, everything requisitioned for war effort. Grandmother organized women, organized children. They hunt, they trap, they share everything. Nobody hoard. Everybody sacrifice for group. 17 people in village. 15 survive winter. 2 die, 1 very old, 1 very young. But 15 survive because grandmother organized, because they work together. Someone raises a glass. To grandmothers who keep us alive. Everyone drinks, the vodka burning a warm path down your throat, temporarily overwhelming the cold that seeped into your bones after hours of shoveling. You know what's funny about war? An old man says. His name is Mikhail, and he's apparently the village elder. Germany tried to invade Russia, try to conquer us. They fail because of winter, because German soldiers not prepared for cold. But we already live in cold worse than anything Germany see. For us, Russian winter not weapon, just Tuesday. He laughs and everyone else laughs with him because it's true. The cold that defeated Napoleon, the cold that helped defeat Hitler, it's nothing compared to what Yakutians endure every year. The quirky reality is that during World War II, Yakutia actually became strategically important. The region's gold mines helped fund the Soviet war effort, and the Alaskan-Siberian air route, used to ferry American Lend-Lease aircraft to the Soviet Union, passed through Yakutsk. Pilots had to learn to operate in temperatures that froze hydraulic fluid and made metal so brittle that aircraft literally fell apart mid-flight. Of the thousands of aircraft ferried along this route, hundreds were lost to weather rather than combat. My father was pilot on Al-Sab route, Mikhail continues. American planes, Soviet pilots, flying in Yakutian winter. Crazy job. He say American engineers design planes for every condition except this one. Everything break. Landing gear freeze. Wings ice up. Fuel turn to jelly. But pilots fly anyway because war not wait for weather. Many planes crash. Many pilots die. But enough planes get through to help defeat Germany. Cold kill some of us, but cold also kill invaders. Is democratic that way. Cold kill everyone equal. Someone else shares a story about the diamond mines, about how they discovered the massive kimberlite pipes that made Yakutia one of the world's richest diamond regions. Soviet geologist in 1955, she find first diamonds in river gravel. She report to Moscow and Moscow not believe. Diamonds in Siberia? Impossible. But she right. Now Yakutia produce more diamonds than almost anywhere. Billions and billions of rubles, all frozen in permafrost. We literally sit on treasure. The diamond industry transformed Yakutia from a forgotten gulag region into an economic powerhouse. Towns like Mirny and Udakny grew up around the mines, complete with modern housing, schools, hospitals, all built on stilts above permafrost, all heated by district heating systems, all supplied by air or via the winter roads that exist only when rivers freeze solid enough to drive trucks across. But the wealth is unevenly distributed. The diamonds flow out to Moscow, to international markets, to jewelry stores in Paris and New York. Some money flows back to Yakutia, enough to maintain infrastructure, to fund basic services, but many villages like this one remain marginal, dependent on subsistence activities and government pensions. Is Russian way, Sardana says philosophically. Moscow take treasure, Moscow give back just enough to keep us alive, keep us mining. We not complain too loud because we remember Gulag, remember when Moscow take everything and give back nothing. At least now we have schools, have hospitals, have electricity, when it work. The conversation drifts to more immediate concerns. Who needs help repairing a roof? Who has extra firewood to share? Whether the supply truck from Yakutsk will be able to get through this month or whether everyone needs to stretch their food stores further. These are the real matters of survival, the daily calculus of resource management in an extreme environment. As the evening wears on, evening coming early because the sun has already set after its brief appearance, people begin to drift back to their own cabins. The temperature is dropping again, already down to minus 65 degrees Celsius, and nobody wants to be out longer than necessary. You help Sardana clean up, washing dishes in melted snow water, putting away food, banking the fire for the night. The cabin feels warmer somehow after having been filled with people and stories and laughter. You see now, Sardana says as you're both settling in for the night, why we survive? Not because we tough, though we tough. Not because we smart, though we smart. We survive because we together. We survive because we share. We survive because when storm kill one person, we not hide in our cabins and pretend not notice. We check on each other. We mourn together. We help each other rebuild. This is secret of survival in Yakutia. Not secret really is obvious, but many people forget. They think survival is individual achievement. Is not. Survival is community achievement. She's articulated something fundamental about human survival in extreme environments. Archaeological evidence shows that humans have always survived harsh conditions through cooperation, through the sharing of resources and knowledge, through social bonds that transcend individual self-interest. The rugged individualist might make a good movie character, but in reality, lone wolves die. Pack animals survive. You fall asleep that night thinking about the dead man in his cabin, about Sardana's grandmother keeping 15 people alive through winter, about pilots freezing to death in aircraft over frozen rivers, about your own close call with the frozen door and metal burn and the stubbornness that nearly killed you. Tomorrow, you'll learn what it takes to not just survive, but to actually live in this impossible place. To find joy and meaning in a landscape that seems designed to erase both. To understand why anyone would choose to stay here when they could leave. But tonight, you sleep warm and safe, part of a community that survived 10,000 winters and will probably survive 10,000 more. A week after the storm, you stand outside Sardana's cabin in the pre-dawn darkness, which is basically all the darkness, since dawn won't arrive for another 2 hours, and realize something fundamental has changed. You're not afraid anymore. The cold is still deadly, still demanding constant respect and attention, but it's no longer this alien force trying to kill you. It's just the environment, the place where you happen to be. You've adapted, at least partially, at least enough to function. Your breathing is different now. You've learned Sardana's technique. Slow, deep breaths through your nose, giving the air time to warm before it hits your lungs. Your nostrils still freeze slightly with each inhale, but you barely notice anymore. It's just what breathing feels like here. Your clothing fits differently too. You've gained back some of the weight you lost, patting yourself with the layers of fat that Sardana insisted you needed. Your face has filled out, your energy levels have stabilized, and you no longer feel like you're constantly on the edge of collapse. The high-fat diet works. Your body has figured out how to be a furnace, how to burn fuel efficiently, how to maintain temperature without exhausting itself. Most importantly, you've learned to read the cold. You can tell the difference now between minus 60 degrees Celsius and minus 70 degrees Celsius just by how the air feels, how your breath crystallizes, how the snow sounds under your feet. You can predict when the temperature is about to drop by watching how the ice fog forms, how the stars look, how the smoke rises from chimneys. You're developing the intuitive understanding that locals have, the kind of knowledge that doesn't come from books or thermometers but from daily intimate contact with an environment that punishes mistakes. This morning, you're preparing for something special. A journey to Oymyakon proper, the village center about 5 kilometers away. It's farther than you've traveled since arriving, and it requires serious preparation. Sardana is coming with you, partly as guide, partly as insurance policy, because 5 kilometers in minus 67 degrees Celsius is still enough distance to die if something goes wrong. The preparation takes an hour. You dress in every layer you own. You pack emergency supplies, extra mittens, hand warmers, dried meat, a thermos of hot tea, matches, a knife, a basic first aid kit. You check and double-check everything. Sardana inspects you like a drill sergeant, finds 3 things wrong. Your scarf isn't tucked properly. Your mittens are tied too loose. You forgot to put fat on your lips to prevent them from cracking. Makes you fix them. then inspects you again. Good, she finally pronounces. Now you look like maybe you not die. Maybe. The journey begins just as the first hint of dawn starts to gray the eastern sky. You follow Sardana along a path that's partially packed down by previous travelers, partially drifted over with fresh snow. The walking is hard work. Each step requires lifting your feet high, planting them carefully, maintaining balance. The cold saps your energy faster than normal hiking would. After the first kilometer, you're breathing hard, sweating under your layers, having to consciously slow down to avoid overheating. Stop, Sardana commands, and you do. She looks at you critically. You too hot. I see steam from your clothes. You sweat, you die. Sweat freeze, then you freeze. Take off one layer. You strip off your middle jacket, and immediately the cold finds you, but in a manageable way. Your body temperature stabilizes. The lesson is clear. Managing heat in extreme cold is just as important as staying warm. Too cold kills you quickly. Too hot kills you slowly but just as surely, as sweat turns to ice against your skin and drains your body heat. The landscape you're walking through is otherworldly. The low angle of the rising sun, still below the horizon but lighting the sky, creates colors you've never seen before. The snow glows pink, then orange, then a deep crimson. The ice crystals in the air catch the light and become a million tiny rainbows. The distant mountains, barely visible through the atmospheric haze, look like they're made of blue glass. Beautiful, yes? Sardana says, pausing to take in the view. This why we stay. Not for diamonds, not for money. For this. For beauty that kill you if you're not careful, but still beauty. You pass an abandoned cabin, its roof partially collapsed under snow weight. Sardana pauses, and you see sadness cross her face. Family lived here, she says quietly. Good people. Children grow up, move to Yakutsk, then Moscow. Old parents stay until they too old to manage alone. Die within 1 month of each other 3 years ago. Cabin empty since then. Eventually, wind and snow will take it. We'll be like family never here. It's a common story in rural Yakutia. Young people leave for cities. Old people stay until they can't anymore. Villages shrink. Buildings decay. The human geography of the region is shifting as modern life pulls people toward urban centers with their heating systems and supermarkets and internet connections. In another generation, villages like this one might be gone entirely, maintained only as seasonal hunting camps or abandoned to the cold. The second kilometer is harder than the first. Your legs are tired, your lungs are working overtime, and the cold is finding its way through gaps in your clothing. But you push on, following Sardana's steady pace, trusting her judgment about when to rest and when to press forward. Halfway through, you pass a remarkable sight. A small herd of Yakutian horses, maybe 8 or 10 of them, standing in a sheltered valley. They're shaggy beyond belief, their winter coats so thick they look like mobile haystacks. One of them, a mare Sardana identifies, is nursing a foal. A foal. In minus 67 degrees Celsius weather. Yakutian horses foal in winter sometime, Sardana explains. Seeing your shock. Is rare but happen. Mare keep foal warm with body. Foal grow thick coat very fast. In 2 weeks, foal be strong enough to run with herd. Nature adapt. Everything adapt or die. The horses watch you pass with mild interest, then go back to pawing through snow to reach the dry grass beneath. They're living proof that this environment, harsh as it is, can sustain life. Not easily, not comfortably by human standards, but sustainably. The horses have been here for centuries, surviving winters that humans required technology and culture to endure. The third kilometer brings the first buildings of Oymyakon proper into view. It's larger than Sardana's village, maybe 150 buildings total, including a school, a shop, a small clinic, and a monument that you can see from a distance. As you get closer, the monument resolves into a pillar with a thermometer and a sign marking this as the cold pole, the coldest inhabited place on Earth. Tourist attraction, Sardana says with mild disdain. People come in summer, take photo, say, oh how cold, then leave. They not understand. You understand now, yes? You live here in real cold, not summer cold. You do understand. There's a world of difference between visiting in summer when temperatures might be 10 degrees Celsius or even 20 degrees Celsius, and surviving in winter when temperatures make human habitation seem like a cosmic error. The village center is surprisingly active despite the cold and early hour. People move between buildings, conducting business, living their lives. You see children, actual children, walking to school, bundled so thoroughly they look like small moving blankets. A truck sits in the center square, engine running. It's been running continuously for probably days because shutting it off means it might never start again. Sardana leads you to a building that serves as the village's informal gathering place. Part shop, part cafe, part community center. Inside, the temperature is almost shockingly warm, maybe 15 degrees Celsius, and you immediately start to overheat. You strip off layers while Sardana greets people in rapid Saka, introducing you as the foreigner who almost die in hunting cabin but learn better. There's laughter, nods of recognition, and you're folded into the community with the same matter-of-fact acceptance that Sardana extended. You're here, you survived, therefore you're worth acknowledging. The bar for acceptance is low in some ways, high in others. Over cups of hot tea and plates of frozen stroganina, you meet the village elders, the school teacher, the nurse who runs the clinic, the mechanic who keeps vehicles running in impossible conditions. Each has stories, each has survived things that would make international news if they happened anywhere else but are just footnotes here. The time the clinic lost power during a medical emergency and they did surgery by flashlight in minus 70 degrees Celsius. The time the school bus broke down and the driver had to keep 20 children warm for 6 hours until rescue arrived. The time the supply truck fell through river ice and they went 3 months without resupply. Is just life. The nurse says with a shrug when you express amazement. We adapt, we solve problems, we continue. What else we do? Give up and die? No, we too stubborn for that. The school teacher, a young woman from Yakutsk who came here to teach and stayed for reasons she's not entirely clear on herself, shows you the school. It's a solid building with modern heating, computers, though internet is satellite and unreliable, and teaching materials in both Russian and Saka. The children attend even when temperatures drop below minus 60 degrees Celsius. Their education considered important enough to risk the journey. Education is how we survive long-term, she explains. Not just survival skills, those important too, but real education. Math, science, literature, languages. These children, they choose to stay here, they need knowledge to make village sustainable. They choose to leave, they need knowledge to succeed elsewhere. Either way, education is investment in future. Historians still argue whether education in remote indigenous communities should focus on preserving traditional knowledge or providing pathways to modern economy. But the answer here seems to be both. The children learn traditional skills, how to hunt, how to prepare food, how to read weather and ice, alongside calculus and computer programming. They're being prepared for multiple possible futures. You spend hours in the village, meeting people, hearing stories, learning about the infrastructure that makes this impossible place function. The power plant that burns coal shipped in during summer when roads are passable. The water system fed by hot springs that keep pipes from freezing. The satellite dishes that provide limited connection to the outside world. The community organization that coordinates everything from food distribution to emergency response. It's more sophisticated than you expected, this survival system. It's not just people huddling in cabins waiting for spring. It's an actual functioning society with schools and clinics and economic activity and cultural life. It's a place where people don't just survive, they live. They have children, celebrate weddings, mourn deaths, argue about politics, gossip about neighbors, fall in love, make art, tell jokes. All the things humans do everywhere, just in an environment that constantly threatens to erase them. As afternoon approaches and the sun begins its brief appearance, Sardana indicates it's time to return. The journey back will be harder. You're tired now, your energy depleted by the cold and the walking and the sensory overload of meeting so many new people. But as you walk back through that otherworldly landscape, watching the sun paint the snow in impossible colors, you feel something unexpected, gratitude. Not for the cold, you're not that adapted, but for the experience, for the knowledge, for the privilege of seeing how humans survive in places that seem designed to exclude them. You're also feeling something else, a strange reluctance to leave. You came here for 2 weeks of authentic experience, expecting to endure it and escape. But now, closing in on 3 weeks, you understand why people stay. Not because they're trapped. Many could leave if they wanted. They stay because they belong. Because this harsh, beautiful, deadly place is home in a way that easier places can never be. When you finally reach Sardana's cabin, exhausted but exhilarated, you collapse by the stove while she prepares tea. The warmth seeps into your bones. The fatigue catches up with you, and you realize you've just walked 10 kilometers in minus 67 degrees Celsius and survived. More than survived, you thrived. You do good, Sardana says, handing you tea. First week, you barely survived to door. Now you walk to village and back. You learn fast. Maybe you become real Yakutian soon. It's probably a joke, but there's warmth in her eyes that suggests it's also partly serious. That night, as you're drifting off to sleep in your small warm room, you think about the question people always ask about places like this. Why do humans live here? And you finally understand the answer isn't simple. It's not just resources or isolation or tradition. It's because humans are adaptable beyond measure. It's because community and culture can make anywhere home. It's because beauty exists even in harshness. It's because survival itself can be meaningful. And it's because some people look at a place that kills the unprepared and think, but what if I prepare? What if I learn? What if I adapt? Those people become Yakutians, and the cold, for all its deadly power, becomes just another part of life. Not easy, never easy, but possible, and sometimes in the right light with the right people almost worth it. The wind picks up outside, beginning its nightly song. The stove crackles. You pull your furs tighter and let sleep find you, warm and safe in one of the coldest places on Earth. You've survived Yakutia. More importantly, you've begun to understand it. And that, more than mere survival, is the real achievement. As the days blend together in Sardana's warm cabin, you find yourself settling into the rhythm of Yakutian life. The cold becomes familiar, almost comfortable in its consistency. You learn to read the subtle changes in temperature, to predict storms by the taste of the air, to move through the frozen landscape with confidence instead of fear. The lessons continue. Sardana teaches you how to prepare traditional foods, how to maintain your clothing, how to navigate by stars when the world is white in every direction. She shares more stories about her family, about the history of this region, about the resilience required to call this place home. You meet more neighbors, participate in communal activities, help where you can. You're no longer the foolish foreigner who almost froze to death alone. You're becoming part of the community, if only temporarily, if only as an honorary member who will eventually leave for warmer places. But a part of you understands now why someone might choose not to leave. Why someone might look at this frozen world and see not just hardship but also beauty, not just danger but also opportunity, not just cold but also the warmth of community forged in shared survival. The human spirit, you've learned, is remarkably resilient. Given time, given community, given knowledge, humans can adapt to almost anything. Even to temperatures that freeze breath mid-air, that turn metal into a deadly hazard, that kill the unprepared in minutes. We adapt. We survive. We build lives in impossible places and call them home. That's the real story of Yakutia. Not the cold, though the cold is extraordinary. Not the hardship, though the hardship is real. The story is the people who looked at this frozen corner of the world and decided it was worth staying for, worth fighting for, worth loving even, as your time here draws toward its end, because you will eventually leave, return to easier climates, tell stories about this experience to people who can barely imagine it. You find yourself already feeling nostalgic for these long dark days, these frozen mornings, these quiet evenings by the stove with Sardana sharing tea and wisdom in equal measure. You came here seeking an authentic experience of survival. What you found was something deeper, an authentic experience of living, of community, of human resilience in the face of nature's most extreme expressions. The door that froze shut on that first morning, the moment of fear and realization, seems like it happened years ago instead of weeks. That door was a threshold in more ways than one. It separated inside from outside, warmth from cold, survival from death. But it also separated ignorance from knowledge, fear from understanding, isolation from community. Sardana helped you open that door, literally and metaphorically. And on the other side, you found not just survival, but life in its most essential form. Now, as sleep gathers around you like another layer of warmth, as the stove crackles its steady song, as the wind whispers its ancient language outside, you let yourself drift into dreams. Dreams of ice flowers and frozen rivers, of horses breathing steam into crystal air, of communities bound together by shared survival, of beauty that exists precisely because it's fragile, precisely because it's hard-won. The cold outside continues its patient work, sculpting the landscape, testing every living thing, waiting for mistakes. But inside, there's warmth, there's safety, there's the quiet triumph of another day survived, another night weathered, another morning anticipated. And that simple fact of continuation, of persistence, of surviving to see another impossible sunrise over the coldest inhabited place on Earth, that is everything. Your breathing slows, matching the rhythm of the stove's gentle crackle. Your muscles relax, releasing the day's tensions. Your mind quiets, settling into the deep peace that comes from being warm and fed and safe in a place that could have killed you but didn't. Outside, the stars will overhead in patterns ancient peoples used for navigation. The temperature drops to -72 degrees Celsius, then -73 degrees Celsius, then hold steady in that impossible cold. Trees crack in the distance. Ice fog rises from the valley floor. The world continues its frozen meditation. But you're inside. You're warm. You're learning. You're living. And tomorrow there will be more to discover, more to learn, more moments of beauty and harshness intertwined, more opportunities to understand what it means to be human in a place that constantly reminds you of your fragility and your strength in equal measure. For now, though, sleep, rest, let your body recover. Let your mind process the day's wonders. Let yourself be held by warmth and community and the knowledge that you've survived something extraordinary. The door may have frozen shut once, but you learn to open it. And that makes all the difference. Sweet dreams, traveler. May they be warm,